The forgotten race. The galaxy had forgotten about them. The whispers of humanity, once powerful and proud, had faded into myths. The Galactic Council no longer feared them, considering their race wiped out in the Great War centuries ago. To the aliens of the galaxy, humans were nothing more than a forgotten page in history, a race that had perished in the flames of a conflict no one could fully remember. But something was happening at the edge of the galaxy. A strange signal, long thought to be nothing more than background noise, began to grow stronger. It started off as a faint whisper, then became more persistent, until it couldn't be ignored. The signal carried a message encrypted in a language thought to be lost forever. Human encryption. Aliens laughed at the idea. Humans, here, impossible. The Great War had destroyed all traces of their fleets. The humans were gone, or so they thought. On a distant world, deep within the archives of the Galactic Council, a young alien historian named Asha came across an old document. It was an ancient report from a time long past, written by a race of beings who had once been allies with the humans. The report spoke of the humans' incredible power and technological superiority, a race that had ruled vast portions of the galaxy. But something had happened, something that caused their sudden fall. The historian's curiosity was piqued. Most thought the humans had simply faded into dust, but the report spoke of something different, something hidden. The humans had a fleet that no one knew about, one that had been hidden in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Ash's mind raced as she pored over the details of the report. If there was even a shred of truth to what was written, it meant that the humans were not gone, as everyone had assumed. They were out there, somewhere, waiting. The council dismissed the notion immediately. They considered it a relic of the past, an old fantasy. After all, there was no physical proof that humans had survived. The galaxy had moved on, but Asha couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She was not a fool. She knew what she had read. If there was even the smallest chance that the humans were still out there, the galaxy would be unprepared for what was to come. Asha decided to take matters into her own hands. She secretly accessed more ancient archives, finding more clues that seemed to confirm her suspicions. The humans had left behind a trail, one that was slowly being uncovered. But why? What could they possibly want now? Were they coming to avenge their lost history? Or was there something more? Meanwhile, across the galaxy, an old communication station was receiving the signal from the edge of space. The signal was unmistakable, carrying the unmistakable signature of humanity. It was coming from the location of a dead star system, a place where no life was supposed to exist. It was an area that had been long abandoned by the galactic community, written off as a graveyard of failed civilizations. A small reconnaissance ship was dispatched to investigate the signal. Led by Commander Zorak, the crew was skeptical, believing the message to be a malfunction. But when they arrived at the coordinates, they discovered something shocking. There, floating in the cold void of space, was an enormous, heavily fortified space station, human-made. It had been abandoned long ago, but it was clear that someone had been there recently. The station was covered in a strange, organic-looking material that seemed to grow across its hull, something alien to the galaxy. As the ship approached, the crew noticed something even more disturbing. The station was emitting a low-frequency hum, almost like a heartbeat. Commander Zorak ordered the crew to investigate further. They docked with the station, cautiously entering its darkened halls. The place was eerily quiet, the only sound the distant hum of the station's failing systems. The crew explored the corridors, finding evidence of an ancient civilization, human, but it was clear that the station had been abandoned for centuries. Yet there were signs that someone had returned. In the command center, Zorak found something that froze his blood. It was a console, still active, despite the years of disuse. It was transmitting a signal, a beacon that could be heard across the galaxy. The signal was faint, but it was clear. The message it carried was simple and terrifying. "We are back." The crew hurried to leave, But Zora couldn't shake the feeling of dread. The humans were gone, weren't they? This had to be a fluke. Yet something in the back of his mind told him that the galaxy had underestimated humanity. The stories, the rumors, the myths, they were all true. The humans had left behind a legacy, and now it was awakening. Back on the homeworld of the Galactic Council, a crisis was unfolding. Asha had gathered enough evidence to present her findings to the Council, but they laughed her off. "The humans are dead. You are chasing ghosts," they told her, but she knew better. There was something she wasn't telling them, something she had discovered in the deep archives. In the most secretive files of the Council, hidden for centuries, she found it. The blueprints of a warship. Not just any warship, but one designed by the humans in their prime. It was called the Phoenix-class dreadnought, a ship capable of unparalleled destruction, capable of wiping out entire fleets with a single strike. The blueprints were incomplete, but Asha pieced them together. The Phoenix-class warship had been hidden, lost in time, and now someone was bringing it back. Asha knew that if humanity had survived and was rebuilding their fleets, the galaxy was in grave danger. The humans had once been the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. They had technology far beyond anything the galactic species had seen. But there was one question that lingered in Asha's mind. What had happened to the humans all those years ago? Why had they disappeared so suddenly, only to resurface now? The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, and with each revelation, the galaxy grew more and more uncertain. Humanity was returning, and no one knew how to stop them. But one thing was clear: everything was about to change. The galaxy had forgotten about humans, but humanity had not forgotten about the galaxy. And soon, they would make their presence known. The Galactic Council remained unconcerned about the findings. To them, the humans were nothing more than ancient history, a species that had vanished long ago. The universe was vast, and the thought of humanity returning was nothing more than a fantasy. They had more pressing matters to deal with: trade disputes, border conflicts, and internal politics. The idea of an extinct species suddenly reappearing was nothing worth their attention. But Asha couldn't let it go. The old war reports, the encrypted messages, the mysterious space station, it all pointed to something bigger. She had no power in the Council, no influence over those who made decisions, but she knew what she had seen. The humans had not been wiped out. They had vanished, yes, but not in the way history claimed. She spent days going through the archives, searching for anything that might explain what had happened. The deeper she dug, the more she realized how much had been hidden. There were reports of human ships disappearing from battlefields, entire fleets vanishing without a trace. Some believed they had been destroyed, overwhelmed by the superior numbers of the Galactic Alliance. But Asha found something different: accounts of human ships retreating toward uncharted space, heading far beyond the known regions of the galaxy. One report, in particular, caught her attention. It was from a Xalvoran scout ship, dated nearly 2 centuries ago. The ship had been exploring a distant sector, far beyond the mapped territories, when it encountered something strange. A massive structure, larger than anything seen before, hidden inside a nebula. The scout ship never returned, but a single transmission had been sent before it vanished. "The humans are here. We were wrong. They are not gone. They are waiting." No one had taken the report seriously. The Xalvoran were known for their paranoia, and the report had been dismissed as another false alarm. But now, with the mysterious signal coming from the edge of space and the discovery of an abandoned human station, Asha began to wonder if that scout ship had seen something real. Meanwhile, on the farthest edges of known space, in a system long thought to be devoid of life, a fleet was gathering. Massive warships, black as the void, remained hidden in the darkness. Their hulls bore no insignia, no markings of any known species. They had been waiting for a long time, watching as the galaxy moved on without them. In the command center of the largest ship, a figure stood before a holographic display, studying the movements of the Galactic Council's fleets. The alien species had grown complacent. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries, believing themselves untouchable. They had forgotten the wars that had once shaped the universe. They had forgotten the enemies they had made. They had forgotten the cost of arrogance. But humanity had not forgotten. The figure turned as a second figure entered the command center, dressed in the uniform of a long-lost navy. "The signal has been received," the officer said. "The galaxy knows we are here." The first figure did not speak for a long moment. Instead, they gazed at the holographic projection of the Galactic Council's homeworld. It was a world filled with bureaucrats, politicians, and rulers who had spent centuries believing they were safe. They did not know what was coming. They did not understand the storm that was about to fall upon them. "The time has come," the commander finally said, their voice calm, yet carrying a weight of finality. "Prepare the fleet." The officer hesitated. "Are you sure? They have no idea we still exist. We could wait longer, gather more strength." The commanders shook their head. "We have waited long enough. The galaxy left us to die. They believed they had wiped us out. They thought they had seen the last of humanity. Now, they will learn the truth." The order was given, and across the fleet, engines roared to life. The warships, hidden in the void for centuries, began to move. Their weapons, powered by technology far beyond anything the Council had ever seen, were primed for battle. Their mission was clear. Humanity had returned, and this time they would not be forgotten. The Galactic Council remained blind to the coming storm. They sat in their grand halls, surrounded by their wealth and power, completely unaware that their fate had already been sealed. For centuries, they had ruled unchallenged, shaping the galaxy as they pleased, believing themselves the ultimate authority. They thought humanity was gone, wiped out by the Great War long ago. They thought they were safe. They were wrong. Far beyond the reaches of their influence, humanity had rebuilt itself in the shadows. They had not perished as the Council had believed. Instead, they had withdrawn, learning, evolving, and preparing. For centuries, they had observed, hidden away in the dark corners of space, biding their time. And now, their time had come. Aboard the flagship of the Hidden Fleet, Admiral Elias Varro stood before the massive viewport, watching as the warships assembled. Their hulls, dark as the void, carried no markings, no symbols of allegiance. These were not the old fleets of the past. They were something new, something built for a singular purpose: retribution. Behind him, his officers stood at attention, awaiting his command. The bridge was silent, the air thick with anticipation. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. They had grown up listening to the stories of humanity's fall, of the betrayal that had cast them out. Now they would write a new story, one where humanity did not fall, but rose again. "Status report," Varro commanded. "All ships are in formation." An officer responded. "Weapon systems are online. The fleet is ready to move." Varro nodded. "And the Council?" "They remain unaware. Their patrols have not detected us. They still believe we are nothing more than a myth." A ghost of a smile crossed Varro's face. The arrogance of the Galactic Council was their greatest weakness. They had spent so long at the top, so long believing in their invincibility, that they had never considered the possibility of an enemy rising from the ashes. But Varro knew better. He had studied history, had memorized the battles that had nearly destroyed humanity. He knew how the Council operated, how they manipulated, how they controlled. And he knew how to strike them where it hurt the most. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Let them know we are coming." A technician pressed a series of commands into the console. Across the fleet, a transmission was sent out, one that echoed across the galaxy, reaching the heart of the Council itself. It was a simple message, but its meaning was clear. "We are here. We have returned. And we remember." The response from the Council was immediate. Alarms blared in their chambers as panicked voices filled the air. The once calm halls of power became a storm of confusion and fear. For the first time in centuries, they felt uncertainty, a crack in their illusion of control. The Supreme Chancellor of the Council, a towering figure of the Salvoran race, slammed a fist onto the table. "What is the meaning of this?" he growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Who dares to send such a message?" One of his aides, a trembling reptilian from the Vexeri species, hesitated before speaking. "The signal. It matches old human frequencies. Sir, we believe it came from humans." The Chancellor interrupted, his voice filled with disbelief. "That is impossible. They were wiped out." The aide swallowed hard. "We thought so, sir. But the signal was not a hoax. It came from a fleet, a large fleet, and it's heading directly for us." Silence fell over the chamber. The council members exchanged nervous glances, their faces filled with uncertainty. Then, another alert blared through the room. A massive holographic display flickered to life, showing the unthinkable. Ships, hundreds of them, emerging from the void. They were unlike anything the council had seen before. They were sleek, deadly, and moving with terrifying precision. One of the generals gasped, "They have cloaking technology. We never saw them coming." The Chancellor clenched his jaw. "Get me the fleet commanders. Now." But it was too late. In the depths of space, humanity's warships spread like a silent storm, cutting through the void with unstoppable purpose. Their weapons hummed with energy, their crews ready to unleash the fury they had carried for generations. The galaxy had forgotten them. Now, they would remind it why they had once been feared. The Galactic Council's panic spread like wildfire. Every communication channel was filled with frantic messages as leaders from different sectors demanded answers. The Supreme Chancellor stood in the heart of the council chamber, staring at the holographic display. It showed the human fleet moving swiftly, cutting through space like a sharpened blade. A fleet of this size shouldn't exist. It couldn't exist. "How?" the Chancellor whispered, his voice barely audible over the chaos around him. "How did they survive?" No one had an answer. The humans had vanished centuries ago, believed to be extinct after their brutal war with the Council. And yet, here they were, not just alive, but stronger than ever. A Vexeri admiral stepped forward, his scales glistening under the dim lights. "Chancellor, our outer defense stations have detected their movement. They are approaching Council space at alarming speed." The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "What of our fleets? Where are they?" The admiral hesitated before answering. "The bulk of our forces are scattered across the outer rim, dealing with uprisings and border disputes. Only a few warships remain within the central systems." A chill settled over the room. The Council had grown complacent, stretching its forces thin to control its vast empire. They had never expected a real threat to emerge from the darkness. "Prepare our defenses," the Chancellor ordered. "I want every available warship mobilized. We will not let them reach us." But deep down, he knew the truth. The humans were coming. And they would not stop. Aboard the lead human warship, Admiral Elias Varro watched the Council's response with cold calculation. Their panic was predictable. They had ruled without challenge for far too long, believing themselves untouchable. That illusion was about to be shattered. "Status report," Varro said, his voice calm. A tactical officer responded. "The Council has detected our movement. Their fleets are scrambling, but they are unprepared. Most of their warships are stationed elsewhere. Only a few remain to defend the core systems." Varro allowed himself a small smile. Exactly as planned. For years, humanity had waited for this moment. They had watched, studied, and learned everything about the Council's weaknesses. Their enemies thought of them as a forgotten race, ghosts of the past. But ghosts had a way of returning. "Begin Phase 1, Varro commanded. Across the fleet, orders were relayed. The warships adjusted formation, moving like a silent tide. Then, without warning, they struck. The first Council defense stations crumbled almost instantly. The human fleet emerged from the void, weapons blazing. High-energy beams sliced through station hulls, sending debris spiraling into space. Explosions erupted in every direction as human warships advanced without mercy. Council soldiers barely had time to react before their outposts were reduced to wreckage. The humans fought with brutal efficiency, moving from one target to the next with terrifying speed. The defenders tried to mount a resistance, but they were outmatched. Within minutes, the outer defenses were gone. The path to the Council's core systems was now wide open. On the surface of the capital planet, the people of the Council watched in horror as the attack unfolded. Massive screens across the cities displayed the footage in real time. Images of burning defense stations and shattered warships filled the skies. Whispers of fear spread among the citizens. The humans were real. They were back, and they were winning. Panic set in. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, demanding answers. The Council had promised them peace, had assured them that humanity was nothing but a forgotten past. Now that past had returned with fire and fury. Within the Council chambers, the leaders argued among themselves. Some called for immediate surrender, knowing that their forces were outmatched. Others demanded an all-out counterattack, refusing to believe that the humans could win. The Supreme Chancellor silenced them with a raised hand. Enough. His voice was sharp, filled with frustration and fear. We are not defeated yet. We must respond with strength. If we show weakness now, they will destroy us all. A general stepped forward. Chancellor, we have a plan. The humans are advancing quickly, but they do not know everything about our defenses. There is a trap we can set, an ambush at the edge of the capital system. If we can lure them in, we may be able to crush their advance before they reach us. The Chancellor nodded. Do it. This may be our last chance to stop them. But deep in his heart, he felt the weight of inevitability. The humans had survived when they were supposed to be dead. They had returned when they were supposed to be forgotten. And now, they were unstoppable. The air inside the Council's war chamber was thick with tension. The Supreme Chancellor stood at the center of the room, his face carved from stone, his mind racing. Around him, holograms flickered, tactical maps, reports from surviving defense stations, and real-time feeds from the front lines. Humanity was cutting through their defenses like a hot blade through ice. Every minute, another outpost fell. Every hour, another fleet was lost. The trap was the last hope. Are the ships in position? The Chancellor asked, his voice sharp. A Zelvarian general nodded, his 4 eyes scanning the data. Yes, Chancellor. The last remaining dreadnoughts and battlecruisers have taken formation in Sector Prime. As soon as the human fleet enters, they will be surrounded. How much do the humans know? They believe our forces are still scattered. They suspect a resistance, but they do not know about the ambush. The Chancellor exhaled slowly. It was a risk, but what choice did they have? If they failed here, nothing would stop humanity from reaching the Council homeworld. Then we wait, the Chancellor said, voice heavy, and we pray they fall for it. Admiral Elias Vero studied the holographic projection in front of him. It displayed the final approach to the Council's capital system. The battle had been devastating for the enemy. Every fleet sent against the humans had crumbled, but something felt wrong. The Council's forces should have collapsed entirely by now. Instead, there was still resistance. Too organized, too prepared. Sir, scans are detecting unusual energy readings ahead. A tactical officer reported. We may be walking into a trap. Vero narrowed his eyes. Pull up all available intelligence on this region. Within seconds, a map of the sector appeared before him. His mind raced as he examined the layout of the system. Something stood out. Too many gravitational anomalies. Too many blind spots for scanners. Then he saw it. They want us to push through this corridor, Vero said, pointing at the narrow path leading into the system. It's the perfect spot for an ambush. If we move in, they'll close in from both sides and surround us. A murmur spread across the bridge. If they had charged in blindly, the entire fleet could have been trapped. It would have been a massacre. Vero clenched his fists. The Council was more desperate than he had thought, and desperate enemies were dangerous. "We change the plan," he ordered. "Send a portion of our fleet through the corridor as bait. Once the Council forces reveal themselves, we strike from behind." The officers moved quickly, relaying orders. The fleet adjusted its course. The game had changed. Now, it was time to turn the Council's own trap against them. The Council fleet lay in wait. Thousands of warships floated in the darkness of space, hidden within the gravitational distortions of Sector Prime. Their engines were powered down, their weapons primed. Inside the lead dreadnought, General Tavak sat in his command chair, his claws tapping anxiously against the armrest. The trap was set. All that remained was for the humans to take the bait. And then they did. From the edge of the system, a small portion of the human fleet advanced forward, just as expected. "Now," Tavak roared. Council warships powered up instantly. The darkness of space was replaced by a sudden burst of energy as thousands of ships appeared from their hiding spots. Laser fire erupted. Explosions filled the void. The Council forces swarmed the human ships like starving predators. Victory was within reach. And then, everything changed. Behind them, the shadows moved. The rest of the human fleet emerged from hyperspace, right behind the Council's forces. A second ambush. Before the Council ships could adjust their positions, the humans struck with terrifying precision. Massive railguns fired. Torpedoes ripped through dreadnought hulls. Entire battlecruisers vanished in the blink of an eye. The ambushers had become the ambushed. Panic spread across the Council forces. Their carefully laid trap had collapsed. Communications filled with desperate voices, officers shouting orders, captains calling for backup. But there was no backup. "Fall back." Tavak bellowed, but it was too late. The human fleet had already cut off their escape route. One by one, the Council ships exploded, their crews screaming into the void. What had started as an ambush had become a slaughter. Tavak gritted his teeth, fury burning in his chest. This wasn't just a battle, it was a message. The humans had known. They had outthought them, at every step. And now, the last line of defense was gone. The path to the Council homeworld was open. The Supreme Chancellor watched in horror as the battle reports poured in. His greatest trap had turned against him. His best generals had fallen. His most powerful ships were nothing more than burning wreckage. He staggered back, feeling the weight of inevitability. "Prepare the planetary defenses," he ordered, but even he knew it was pointless. The humans were coming, and nothing could stop them now. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. The human fleet, now victorious in their largest and most daring maneuver yet, remained poised and ready for what was to come next. The remnants of the Council's forces scattered in all directions, trying to regroup, but the damage had been done. Humanity had delivered a blow to the very heart of their once feared enemies. Admiral Vero stood at the center of his command bridge, looking out at the void of space as it glittered with the aftermath of the battle. His heart raced, adrenaline still pumping through his veins. The Council's fleet had been shattered, but the journey was far from complete. The ultimate goal had always been the homeworld, the nerve center of the entire Galactic Council, and it was now in humanity's sights. "We have a clear path to the Council's capital," his communications officer reported, breaking the silence on the bridge. "But we've detected an immense concentration of energy in orbit. They're preparing something." Vero's brow furrowed. The Council had been known for their cunning, and their desperation was becoming more evident by the minute. They knew they were on the brink of annihilation. It was no surprise they were preparing their final defense. "Bring up the system maps. Show me what we're dealing with," Vero ordered. The holographic screen flickered and displayed the homeworld system, with planets, moons, and countless orbital stations suspended in the vastness of space. The Council's capital planet glowed brightly at its center, But it was the defenses that caught Vero's attention. Several large stations, some with enormous weapons arrays, surrounded the planet. It was clear the Council was ready to make their last stand. "I think we know what they're planning," Vero muttered under his breath. "But they're not going to get the chance." On the Council's homeworld, panic was spreading like wildfire. The citizens were being herded into underground shelters as the elite military forces scrambled to activate every weapon, every defense system, every available ship they could muster. The Supreme Chancellor paced back and forth in the war room, his mind racing. He had always believed in the superiority of the Council, the unchallenged might of their combined forces. Yet now he found himself questioning every assumption. The humans had done what no one thought possible. They had broken through, shattered his fleets, and were now on the cusp of victory. "You must make a decision, Chancellor," a voice called from the corner of the room. It was his trusted advisor, General Jacques. "We are nearly out of time. The humans are coming." The Chancellor turned sharply, his eyes burning with fury and fear. "And what would you suggest?" "We have nothing left to stop them." "We still have the planetary extermination cannons," Jacques said, his voice cold and calculating. "We can fire them from the surface, destroy the human fleet before they can reach the planet." The Chancellor hesitated, looking over the map of the system, his mind calculating the risks. The extermination cannons had the power to wipe out entire fleets in one shot, but their range was limited. If they missed, humanity would have enough time to strike back, and the repercussions would be catastrophic. "Prepare the cannons," the Chancellor finally ordered. "We will not let them take this world." Back on Vero's flagship, the crew was tense. They all knew what was coming, and every second that ticked by felt like a countdown to oblivion. They were closing in on the capital world, and soon they would be within range of the planetary defenses. "Admiral, we've detected a massive spike in energy signatures from the planet's surface," one of the officers reported. "It's coming from multiple locations across the capital's orbit." Vero clenched his jaw. "They're firing the extermination cannons. They're desperate." He knew they would need to move fast, much faster than they had originally planned. The cannons could obliterate the fleet if they weren't careful. "All ships, full evasive maneuvers," Vero shouted, his voice commanding. "Prepare to fire on the planetary defenses. We need to take them out before they have a chance to strike first." The moment the extermination cannons fired, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. A blinding flash of light erupted from the surface of the Council's homeworld, stretching across the stars like a harbinger of doom. The first blast shot through the blackness, aimed directly at the heart of the human fleet. Vero watched in horror as the beam streaked across space, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Ships exploded in an instant, their hulls unable to withstand the sheer power of the blast. But the humans were prepared. Vero had anticipated this. Just as the beam reached them, the human fleet split apart. Ships zigzagged in every direction, narrowly avoiding the full force of the cannon. "Return fire," Vero ordered, his heart pounding. "Engage the planetary defenses." The human fleet retaliated with a volley of energy blasts, pounding the remaining Council stations into oblivion. The once impenetrable defensive grid around the planet began to fracture, systems crumbling under the assault. But the Council wasn't done yet. The extermination cannons continued to fire, each blast sending shockwaves through space. Vero clenched his fists as he watched the chaos unfold. The Council was relentless, but so were they. Humanity had already proven that they could fight against the impossible, and now they were proving it once again. The final moments before the destruction of the last Council station were approaching. The homeworld was within reach. Victory was almost in their grasp. "Prepare to move in," Vero called out. "Once the defenses fall, we hit them with everything we've got. No mercy." The battle raged on, and the tension was palpable. The final act of humanity's revenge was at hand. The Council's homeworld was crumbling under the weight of their defiance. And the humans, They were just getting started. But in the silence of space, only one truth remained. Humanity had proven that, no matter how powerful the enemy, they would always rise to face them. The war was far from over, but with each passing moment, the Council's grip on the galaxy was slipping further and further away, and Earth's victory was within sight. The Galactic Council's homeworld lay in ruin. Smoke and fire covered the planet as its defenses crumbled under the relentless assault of the human fleet. The once proud seat of galactic power was reduced to chaos, with panicked civilians fleeing to underground bunkers and council warships desperately trying to escape the inevitable. Admiral Vero stood on the command bridge, watching the devastation unfold. The extermination cannons had failed. The planetary defenses were shattered. The Council's last hope was slipping through their fingers. "Sir, enemy fleets are retreating from orbit," a communications officer reported. "They're abandoning the capital." Vero smirked. "They're running. Good. That means they've accepted their defeat." The bridge crew remained silent, the weight of the moment settling over them. Humanity had done the impossible. They had not only survived the Council's oppression, but had turned the tide of history. No longer would Earth be seen as a minor, insignificant world. They were now the dominant force in the galaxy. But there was still one final decision to make. "Admiral, orders?" asked Commander Reese, his voice steady but expectant. "Do we finish it?" Vero exhaled slowly. He knew what had to be done. If the Council was left alive, they would rebuild. They would plot their revenge. Humanity could not afford another war. "Launch the final strike," he said. Across the fleet, the order was relayed. Massive battleships adjusted their positioning, targeting the remaining Council strongholds on the planet below. The humans had no intention of occupying the planet. This was not a war for territory. It was a war for survival, and survival required the total destruction of their enemy. Moments later, the sky above the Council's homeworld lit up as the bombardment began. Orbital weapons rained fire upon the planet, tearing through military bases, communication centers, and government buildings. The Supreme Chancellor, still hiding deep within the war room, watched in horror as the ground beneath him shook violently. His people, once so arrogant, were now reduced to terrified refugees, scrambling for any chance to escape. "This can't be happening," the Chancellor muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. General Jacques, standing beside him, had no words of reassurance left to offer. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the ultimate price. One final impact struck the Council's command center, sending shockwaves across the entire city. The Supreme Chancellor closed his eyes as the walls crumbled around him. The Galactic Council was no more. On board the human flagship, the bridge was silent. The battle was over. Humanity had won. Vero looked around at his crew, each of them staring at the viewscreen, processing the reality of what they had just done. The war had defined them, shaped them, but now it was over. "Sir," Commander Reese finally spoke, "the Council's forces are in full retreat. No resistance left." Vero nodded. "Then it's time for us to go home." Across the fleet, engines roared to life as the human warships turned away from the ruined planet. They had no interest in ruling over the remnants of the Council's empire. Humanity had fought for survival, not conquest. As Earth's fleet made its way back toward the Sol system, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never forget the day humanity rose from the ashes. The day the oppressed became the rulers. The day the forgotten race reclaimed its destiny. And in the darkness of space, the legend of Earth's vengeance would echo for generations to come.